students, this is a description of your final research paper, which will be completed towards the end of the school year. We'll start working on it during the fourth quarter of the course. I just like providing an early description of it to my students, early in the school year, of course, so that you know what you're getting into, so what challenges that you may be facing going forward as we begin this course. But we won't start working on this until the fourth quarter of the year. So a key requirement is provided right at the top. This is a research paper, but it's also an argumentative paper. So because it's a research paper, you need to provide source citations. Where did you get your information from? Because it's argumentative, you need to create a thesis statement and support it with supporting arguments and key content from these sources, in which of course you will cite that content from your source when you use it. If you don't do these things, then this paper will not be graded at all. You'll simply get a 0 on the paper. So make sure you do these things. This is an argumentative paper based on research. Okay? So it's a research paper in which you're making an argument. So description of the paper. Students are to complete a 5 to 7 page research paper concerning a topic from the Cold War or the modern American history era, which will be covered in Honors Social Studies 2. Topics can include events or people and must be related to topics covered in the class. Paper should contain a thesis or central argument. Sources should be cited according to the MLA, Modern Language Association format, taught by the English department at Vermillion High School. Papers are due on May 21st, 2021. Hopefully by then, we'll be back to some form of face-to-face instruction. Papers will be submitted on Google Classroom for grading purposes and Turnitin.com to determine if you plagiarized. Please do not do so. It is your goal to fulfill all requirements in the paper, which have been provided for you. Research paper keys have also been provided below. I'm going to go through all those just to provide you a little bit of explanation. Now, the paper will be worth enough points that the student cannot receive an A in the course without completing it. So similar to your book analysis paper, if you don't do this paper, the highest grade you can get is a B+, and that's assuming that you're getting an A+ at the time. So I highly recommend that you complete this paper if you want a good grade in the course. But if you don't complete it, you can still earn a B, assuming you're doing extremely well on everything else. If you want an A, you have to do this paper. Source requirement: 4 reliable sources. One of these must be a primary source. No Wikipedia on this assignment. The high school library databases are very valuable for finding reliable sources. I believe the student login is Vermillion and Sailors. You can access them through the school website under high school and library. So you may want to use those. You can use other sources as well, as long as they're reliable and valid. If you have a question as to whether or not they are, please let me know. And actually, I'm going to have you submit your sources to me. I'll let you know. Okay, so I did provide some topic recommendations, but this list is by no means exclusive. There are topic suggestions that students have made over the years that are quite impressive that I wish I would have thought of or added to the list. So you don't have to strictly adhere to this list. There are other topics that you may want to do. They do have to be related to American history, okay, because that's what this course is a focus upon. But there are other topics that you can choose that are not on this list, that's for sure. So you can peruse that list on your own. There are a lot of good topics there, but if you have others in mind, feel free to let me know. I provided you a timeline, a due date. These are fourth quarter dates. Early in the course, we'll choose our topics. You'll provide your resources, and I'll approve those, make sure they're reliable and valid. I'll require a thesis statement and an outline. I do not require a rough draft. But if you want to submit a rough draft for me to look at, I will do so. And then your final paper is due May 21st. Okay, I want to go through these research paper keys just to give you some more explanation or give you an oral listing of them. So research paper keys. All research paper keys must have a thesis or central argument you are trying to make. Papers with no thesis argument will not be graded, and that has happened before. So please don't be that student. Provide a central argument. Make your own argument. This is what makes the paper uniquely yours. If you're just giving me information from another source with no argumentation, then you're just giving me somebody else's work. Your argument and your effort to prove it is what makes this paper uniquely yours. Once again, use MLA to cite things. It is parenthetical citation is fine. A good rule to live by. Students often wonder, how many citations should I provide? So a good rule to live by is providing at least one citation per paragraph in the paper body, although some paragraphs may need more. Cite direct quotes and conclusions or information provided by other sources. Papers with no citations will not be graded. You don't really need to provide a citation in your introduction and concluding paragraphs. Sometimes students like to work a quote into those and they cite them, that's fine, but you really don't need to have an introductory citation or a citation in your intro and your conclusion paragraph. Those should be all you. But please note, whenever you use somebody else's information, even if you're writing it in your own words or putting your own interpretation upon it, you need to cite it. So please be aware of that. Okay? Make sure at least every paragraph in the paper body has at least one citation if you want a good grade on this. 12 point, Times New Roman print. Do not waste space. I don't want extra spaces in between paragraphs. I don't want huge margins on the paper. Do not waste space. 5 to 7 pages. 1-inch margins. Papers must be typed. They must be double spaced. Works cited page must be provided at the end of the paper. Paper should have an introduction which the thesis is stated and a conclusion which the thesis is restated as you summarize your points and analysis. The thesis statement should be referenced or restated at appropriate points throughout the paper, at least once per page is recommended. What a lot of students do is they come up with a good thesis statement and they mention it in their intro and they mention it in their conclusion, but they don't mention it all throughout the paper. And so what happens is the reader forgets the argument that the writer is trying to make, or it turns simply into a paper of information and it's not very argumentative at all. So make sure you reference your thesis statement either by restating it at appropriate times or wording it differently in the paper body. This is very important, very important. And your introduction and your concluding paragraphs will be very similar, but they should also be different. Okay, so as you summarize at the end, that should be worded somewhat differently from your introduction. Pages should be numbered. That helps me in grading. I'll simply number them in the margins. You should be able to do that with most programs. Let me know if you're struggling with that. A paragraph is at least 3 to 5 sentences. Make new paragraphs when you have a subject or topic change. Never make one page just one paragraph. Students do this all the time. They fill up an entire page with words. Now I want you to think about when you complete an assignment like this, you have to have some sympathy or empathy for your grader. Keep your grader happy. The last thing a teacher like myself wants is to be grading papers late at night, say 11 p.m., and they open it up and there's nothing but words, words, words on every page with no paragraph or topic breaks. That is very frustrating. These papers are too short to have incredibly long paragraphs. They're only 5 to 7 pages. That is not a very long paper. It may seem like it, but that's really not a very long paper. You'll find that out as you advance in your academic writing career. So make sure you're providing more topic or paragraph breaks on each page. Okay, do not make one page just one paragraph in length. You need to move on to the next topic. You're spending too much time on one topic if you're doing that. Move on to your next argument. Research papers must have 6. Oops, sorry, I forgot I changed that. Let's fix that right now, kids. 4 reliable sources. It was originally 6. I changed that. One of these should be primary. Once again, no Wikipedia, library, research databases are recommended. Avoid vague phrases. Avoid vague phrases, avoid slang phrases. Be specific when you write. Okay? If you do happen to use those because you're trying to drive home maybe an emotional point, explain what you mean by them. Always explain things to your reader. Okay? What do you mean by what you're saying? Okay? Think about writing for Mr. No Clue. You'll hear me say that a lot. Your person is reasonably educated who's reading this. They're not a complete idiot, so to speak, but they don't know a lot about what you're writing. So make sure you're explaining your points, explaining your phrases. Do not use first person. This makes a research paper weak. particularly using words like I think or in my opinion. Avoid pronouns as well. Be strong in your writing. State your writing as this is how it happened. This is the truth. This is the key argument. Don't say I think or in my opinion. That just makes it weak. Be the authority. Write like you're the authority. Be strong in your writing. Avoid pronouns. Now, this doesn't mean that you can't use pronouns. Obviously, you can use pronouns, but students use them too much. They might reference a proper noun, and then they never use the person's name again. Okay? A good rule of thumb here is to go proper noun, pronoun, and I'll try to give you a brief example. So my example will focus on Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln was truly opposed to slavery. He wrote the Emancipation Proclamation, which freed slaves in occupied states during the Civil War. Lincoln supported the 13th Amendment. He will use measures as a president to try and convince congressmen to vote for it, and this will lead to the outlawing of slavery. So notice what I'm doing there. I'm going proper noun, right, to pronoun. I'm going back and forth. If you just use pronouns all the time, the reader tends to lose focus upon or not remember who you're referring to. So proper noun, pronoun is a good way to write when you're spending time on one person. Avoid introducing points and not explaining them or supporting them with research. Never introduce a new point in a concluding paragraph. If you're trying to squeeze in a point in a concluding paragraph, then it wasn't that important. Okay? Your concluding paragraph should just be summation. There should be no typos. Too many typos will lead to a no grade. Now notice it says too many typos. If you have a few typos, you won't lose any points at all. I do that. I just corrected one on this handout as I was talking to you. It happens. But if you have too many typos, and it's obvious to me you did this paper at the last minute and you didn't proofread very well, and in other words, you didn't spend a lot of time on it, so why should I spend time on it? Okay? Prove to me you spent time on the paper. Don't turn in a paper with a ton of typos. Do not just present research points and facts, present some of your own. Plagiarism. Plagiarism will result in a 0. Plagiarism occurs when you copy and paste. Type exactly what another author has written, or you write in a way that closely imitates the language and thoughts of another and represent them as your own. When you use someone else's conclusions or information, you must provide an immediate citation at the end of that sentence. Okay, do not take credit for someone else's work. Provide credit where credit is due. Do not steal from other people, in other words. Plagiarism is theft. Do not be a thief. Meet due dates. If a problem occurs, talk to Mr. Lacasco before the due date. Paper will not be accepted late. You all have the potential to be great writers, but it takes discipline and hard work. Pay close attention to the points on this paper. In particular, pay very close attention to the points made in bold capitals. If you do not fulfill the requirements made in bold print, you will receive dramatic point reductions. Here is your rubric. Ignore the point totals on this rubric. Please look this rubric over. The paper could be worth more than 100 points. We'll see. I have to make the paper worth a high enough percentage that if you choose not to do the paper, you will not receive an A in the course. As always, students, if you have any questions about any of this material, please let me know. I'm sure that you will, as this is a major assignment.